You've been told that keeping the peace is noble, that silence is golden, that letting others have their way is the path of wisdom. So you stay quiet, swallow your truth, and sacrifice your needs again and again, convinced it's easier than rocking the boat. But what you don't hear is this. Every time you erase yourself for the sake of peace, you're trading healing for silence. Sacrifice disguised as peace isn't peace at all. It's a slow erosion of your soul, a quiet surrender that fractures your sense of self. When you deny your boundaries, when you push down what you truly feel, you're not healing wounds, you're deepening them. The cost of keeping the peace is a fractured identity and a heart that feels unseen, unheard, and unsafe. True healing demands something far harder: the courage to be seen, to speak your truth, to disrupt the calm that's only surface deep. Healing is not about avoiding waves, but learning to navigate them, even if that means rocking the boat and shaking the foundations of what peace has come to mean in your life. Before we get started, please note, this video is intended for informational and educational use only. It does not replace professional diagnosis or therapy. If you're struggling, consider speaking with a licensed mental health provider. Your identity is not an abstract idea, it's grounded in your values, feelings, and needs. These elements form the foundation of who you are at your deepest level. When you honor your values and express your feelings authentically, you create a sense of integrity and wholeness. This foundation supports your mental and emotional health, helping you navigate life with clarity and strength. But when you start sacrificing these core parts of yourself repeatedly to avoid discomfort or conflict, you undermine that foundation. Each time you silence your voice or dismiss your feelings for the sake of peace, you chip away at your true self. What begins as a small concession can accumulate into a vast internal emptiness, a sense of being unmoored in your own life. This constant self-betrayal doesn't go unnoticed by your psyche. It manifests as resentment, that bitter sting that grows when your needs go unmet and your voice remains unheard. Anxiety often follows, as the dissonance between your internal truth and your external behavior creates tension and unease. Over time, this emotional strain leads to exhaustion, leaving you drained and disconnected. The cost is far greater than you might realize. This isn't kindness or generosity, it's erasure. When you keep sacrificing yourself to keep others comfortable, you're not being selfless. You're losing parts of your soul. The peace you think you're maintaining is superficial, masking an undercurrent of pain and suppression that threatens your well-being. Moreover, this pattern creates a dangerous feedback loop. The more you betray yourself, the more disconnected you become, and the harder it is to recognize or assert your needs. You become trapped in a cycle of people-pleasing, avoidance, and silence, each act designed to preserve peace but ultimately deepening your isolation and self-loss. Recognizing this erosion is the first step to rebuilding. It requires honest reflection on where you've compromised and why. It means acknowledging the emotional toll of this self-betrayal and granting yourself permission to reclaim your voice and boundaries. Your foundation may be shaken, but it is not irreparable. What cracks or fissures do you sense in your foundation right now? Keeping the peace can feel like the safest choice, especially when the alternative is conflict, rejection, or chaos. In families, friendships, romantic relationships, and work environments, silence often seems like the path of least resistance. You may convince yourself that staying quiet preserves harmony, spares feelings, or keeps things normal. But beneath this fragile calm often lies a storm waiting to erupt. This so-called peace is frequently just a mask that covers unresolved tension and unmet needs. When you suppress your truth to avoid rocking the boat, you're not preventing conflict, you're postponing it. Emotional energy doesn't disappear. It accumulates. The system remains unchanged, festering beneath the surface, making the next clash more intense or the slow erosion of your well-being more severe. In many toxic dynamics, the system itself is designed consciously. or unconsciously to keep certain patterns intact. Your silence becomes a cog in this mechanism, reinforcing unhealthy roles and boundaries. By not speaking your truth, you help maintain an environment that may have harmed you or stifled your growth in the first place. It's a difficult paradox. Peace feels like safety, but it often means staying trapped. This dynamic is especially dangerous because it blurs the lines between peace and submission. Over time, what began as an act of kindness to preserve relationships morphs into chronic self-suppression. You may start doubting your own needs or question whether your feelings matter. This disconnection from yourself becomes fertile ground for anxiety, depression, and loss of identity. Toxic patterns thrive on invisibility, on what isn't said or seen. Your voice holds power, but withholding it allows unhealthy systems to persist. By keeping the peace at the cost of your authenticity, you inadvertently enable behaviors and structures that undermine your well-being. True peace requires honesty, even when it's uncomfortable or risky. Understanding this invites a radical shift. Peace is not silence or avoidance. Real peace demands boundaries, truth-telling, and sometimes disruption. It asks you to evaluate whether the calm you're holding onto is worth the price of your authenticity and mental health. What relationships or environments in your life feel like this delicate, dangerous calm? How might speaking your truth begin to change the system you're part of? True healing demands something most of us avoid: the willingness to say no. Saying no is not about shutting others out or being difficult. It is about honoring your own limits, physical, emotional, and psychological. Without boundaries, your needs get trampled beneath the weight of others' expectations, and your sense of self erodes bit by bit. Saying no, especially when it feels uncomfortable, is a radical act of self-respect and healing. When you learn to express your feelings honestly, you create a space where your inner world is acknowledged and valued. This honesty isn't about blaming or attacking others, but about being clear with yourself and those around you. It's how you communicate your truth in a way that fosters connection rather than conflict. Without this authenticity, relationships remain shallow and your own healing remains stalled. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability and boundaries teaches us that healing flourishes in environments where we can be both authentic and safe. Authenticity means showing up as your whole self, not just the parts you think others will accept. Safety means having your boundaries respected and your feelings heard. These conditions create fertile ground for transformation, allowing wounds to heal rather than fester under silence and compromise. Sacrificing your truth for the sake of peace is often mistaken for courage, but it's survival mode in disguise. Survival strategies keep you safe in the short term, but block your growth in the long term. They teach your system to stay small, to avoid risk, and to suppress parts of yourself. Healing, on the other hand, invites expansion, the capacity to hold discomfort, to assert yourself, and to embrace complexity. This shift requires practice and patience. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They are bridges that protect your well-being while inviting authentic connection. They teach others how to treat you and, more importantly, remind you how to treat yourself. Each time you assert a boundary, you reclaim your power and step closer to living a life aligned with your values and needs. Reflect on this. Where in your life have you compromised yourself to maintain peace? What would it feel like to say no and express your truth in those spaces? Recognizing that healing requires boundaries is a powerful turning point. It challenges you to redefine peace, not as silence, but as authentic presence. How ready do you feel to take that step? Every time you betray yourself, whether by silencing your feelings, compromising your values, or ignoring your needs, you set off a profound internal clash. Psychologically, this is known as cognitive dissonance, a tension between your inner experience and your outward behavior. This clash isn't just an abstract concept. It lives in your body as unease, confusion, or restlessness, signaling that something essential is out of alignment. This internal disconnect fractures your emotional world. Your feelings and actions are meant to be integrated, working together like parts of a whole. But when you deny what you truly feel or believe, your emotional system fragments. Pieces of yourself get compartmentalized or buried, and that fragmentation slows or even stalls the natural process of healing. Instead of moving through pain, you get stuck in cycles of avoidance and numbness. The emotional symptoms of this disconnect vary. Anxiety often arises as a signal that your inner truth is being suppressed, a nervous system response to unresolved tension. Depression can develop when the weight of ongoing self-betrayal leads to a sense of helplessness or despair. Numbness might feel like a protective shutdown, where your system cuts off sensation to escape the constant internal war. These symptoms are not failures. They are the language of a psyche crying out for integration. Healing requires bridging this divide, bringing your inner experience and outward expression into harmony. This is a delicate process of acknowledging your feelings, validating your needs, and allowing yourself to be seen authentically. It demands courage because it often means confronting discomfort you've long avoided, but it is the only way to resolve internal conflict and move toward wholeness. When you integrate your emotions, the tension of dissonance begins to ease. Your nervous system learns that it is safe to feel and express without consequence. This integration fosters resilience, emotional clarity, and a deeper connection to yourself and others. You move from fragmentation to coherence, from chaos to calm. Healing begins with reclaiming your voice, the honest, unfiltered expression of your needs, feelings, and boundaries. This isn't about aggression or creating chaos. It's about standing firmly in your truth with clarity and respect. When you reclaim your voice, you send a powerful message to yourself and others. Your experience matters, and you deserve to be heard and honored. Radical self-respect means valuing yourself enough to set clear, consistent boundaries. Boundaries are the practical expressions of your worth, the lines you draw to protect your well-being. They are not walls to shut people out, but invitations to healthier, more authentic connections. When you maintain boundaries, you nurture your sense of safety and integrity, creating the space necessary for real healing. Clear communication is the vehicle for this self-respect. It requires courage to speak your truth honestly and compassionately, especially when it risks conflict or discomfort. Yet it is in this vulnerability that trust and deeper understanding grow. Consistently expressing your needs fosters relationships built on mutual respect rather than silent compromise or resentment. Accepting discomfort as part of the healing journey is crucial. Growth rarely happens in comfort zones. Discomfort signals that you're challenging old patterns and expanding your emotional capacity. It may bring fear, doubt, or pain, but it also brings opportunity, the chance to rewrite your story and build resilience. Embracing discomfort, rather than fleeing from it, distinguishes survival from thriving. Healing is inherently messy. It doesn't follow a neat timeline or linear progression. You'll stumble, retreat, and face setbacks, but each step forward, no matter how small, is a reclamation of your authentic self. The process transforms your relationship with yourself from one of neglect or self-betrayal to one of care, respect, and love. If you keep betraying yourself in the name of keeping the peace, what you're really building is not peace. It's a slow erosion of your soul. Silence and sacrifice worn like armor may seem like protection, but underneath, they hollow you out. This fragile calm comes at too high a cost. Your authenticity, your joy, your very sense of self. True healing begins with honesty, first and foremost with yourself. It requires the bravery to look beneath the surface, to face what you've hidden or denied. This honesty is not always comfortable, but it is essential. Without it, healing remains out of reach, trapped behind walls of silence and compromise. Healing also demands courage, the courage to show up fully and unapologetically as you are, to speak your truth even when it shakes the foundations around you, to claim your needs without apology, to refuse to shrink in the face of discomfort or fear. This courage is not reckless. It is a radical act of self-love. No more hiding, no more shrinking. The path to peace is paved by reclaiming your voice and honoring your boundaries. It is a commitment to yourself that you will no longer sacrifice your essence for the sake of false harmony. Only then can peace be more than a fleeting absence of conflict. It becomes a deep, living presence within. This is your invitation to stop betraying yourself and start healing with integrity. To build a life where your soul is nourished, your voice is heard, and your truth is sacred. Peace is possible, but only when it grows from radical honesty and self-respect.